Now we're going to return to some of the earlier lectures where we were talking about how to do the left, the right, and the mid function, and we're going to utilize some of that type of string manipulation, because what we're going to do right now is we're going to try to figure out the first or the second or even the last word in a group of words. And we're going to show you how to create a custom dynamic function to do that. And so let's go back to our laboratory here in VBA, Alt F11 if you will. Let's ignore all this stuff in the background and let's just concentrate on working our code here. So we're going to create a new function. So we're going to say function space, and we're going to call this one find the nth word. Find nth word. And we're not going to put any parameters just yet. Except that at the beginning we're going to go ahead and assume that we're going to get the very first word, and then we're going to put the parameters in so that you can find any word that you would like. So essentially, I guess when we're experimenting, we're going to find the first word, but very quickly we'll change that. So let's have our test string really quick here. So test str is going to be equal to, let's do hello world, end quote. Okay, that's our test string. And then we want to find the nth word, the first word, which is hello. So here's what we're going to do. Again, in some of the other courses that I teach, I go way in depth into using arrays or using the split or array functions. But essentially, what we're going to do to make this very easy on ourselves is there is a function called the split function. And it'll split it by anything you want. In this case, we're going to split it into however many things have a space bar, but you could use the split function with commas or any other delimiter or separating keystroke. So we're going to say basically, let's do a myvar for now, and we can actually simplify this in just a moment. So myvar is going to be equal to, and we're going to use the split function. Now this is not one that we wrote. This is a built-in Excel VBA function. So we use the split function, and we're going to use it on the string, which is test str, and which, as you might recall, we just put the words hello world into, comma. And what's the delimiter? What is separating these separate things that we're going to split? Well, I'm glad you asked. It is a space bar. So we're going to put quote, space, end quote. Now, again, sometimes you have a big string of comma separated things. So the delimiter, you might put quote, comma, end quote. In this case, we're going to use a space because there's spaces in between these two words. And then we don't have to do any of the other things right now. We're going to end quote. So that's the split function essentially. Let's show you what it does. I'm going to hit F8 a couple times. So we know that test str, if we hover over it, equals hello world, right? But we want to split up this into two different chunks. The first chunk will say hello with no spaces next to it. And the second chunk will have no space at the beginning, but it will merely say world exclamation mark. Now the reason the space goes away is because whatever the delimiter is, whether it's a comma or a pipe or a whatever, it's going to go away, including this space bar. So if we make myvar into this array that contains multiple objects that have been split up, chunked, if you will, by the space bar, here's what it looks like. Well, you can't really hover over it, but you can see it if you go to the View tab and click on the Locals window. If we click on the Locals window, we can expand our now we have an array, which is basically multiple variables into one thing. So myvar number 0 is equal to the word hello. Notice there's no spaces behind it. And myvar number 1 is equal to the word world exclamation mark. So it split them with the spaces. So I'm guessing you know what we're going to do next. If myvar number 0 is the word hello, then that's how we can get the very first word. We could say, hey, first word is going to be equal to myvar number 0, item number 0 of that array. And in fact, if we hover over it, yep, sure enough, it says hello. So that's very interesting, isn't it? If I hit F8, now we see that first word is equal to hello. And if we wanted the second word, you guessed it, we just need to do this. And if we hover over it, that is world. So that's pretty cool. So if we're going to find the nth word, we can actually clean this up a little bit and make it a little bit easier on ourselves. Essentially, if we were going to find the nth word in a string of text, then probably we're going to have a parameter that has whatever our value is. So that's the text that we want to compare, or we want to find the nth word, I guess you could say. And then comma, well, what is the number? So we'll do nth. That's going to be, so it's asking me to start over because I'm messing with the parameters. So yes, that's fine, start over. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to test this out, and then we're going to tweak it a little bit more as we go. So we're going to say sub space, and we're going to say test nth. Okay. So we're going to say my var is going to be equal to the function find nth word, open parentheses. So what's the value we want to test? Well, let's do hello world again. Hello world. How about hello world? My name is Dan. Now I should have put a comma in there for good punctuation, but who cares? So I'm going to hit comma, and now this is the nth, the numerical. What's the nth number that I want to find? Well, let's say I want to find the second word in there. So I'm going to put the number 2. Now we remember a moment ago this was 0 based, so the first one was actually number 0, and the second one was actually number 1. So we might have to compensate for that. But anyway, let's go ahead and try this out. So we're going to hit F8 a little bit and just, hey, we're debugging, we're testing stuff out. It's okay if things are wrong right now. It's okay. So let's hit F8 and start our function. So the parameter right here is hello world, my name is Dan. And the parameter right here is we want the number 2, the number 2 nth, the second result of that. So let's take this string away. That's no longer valid. And this is actually going to be, we're going to split whatever's in cval. So we change the variable name to whatever they are inputting using their function, right? And then later on here, we want to take whatever the nth value is, but we want to take that minus 1, right? Because I said I want the second result, but really what I want is 0, 1, which would be the second result in this array. I hope that makes sense. But essentially, here's the couple of steps that we need. Okay, so the first step is we're going to split hello world, my name is Dan, using the space bars, right? So then we have this my var thing, which again we could go to view locals window and we can expand my var, but now we have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which is actually 6 of them, but it starts with 0, so they're 0 based. So the first one is hello, then world, then my, then name, then this, then Dan. Okay, we want the second result, which is the result number 1, 0, 1. So if we say we want this to the nth number minus 1, whatever it is minus 1, that would give us, well, what's 2 minus 1? We can hover and see, but I bet you know it is 1. So then there you go. My var number 1 is the word world, which is the second result. So we just did it. We are geniuses. Pat yourself on the back. So if I take this, I don't want it to say first word anymore. I want it to say the actual name of the function, the find nth word function. So if I hit F8, it's going to say world. And that works pretty good. Now, here's the kicker. If you recall earlier on when we were working on if you go to the left-right tab here, you remember we had this name here. So we're going to say, how about Johnny P test? But now we can use our new super cool function, at least temporarily if we want. So we're going to say equals, we're going to equals find nth word. And let's click over to this cell right here. And I'm going to hit F4 so that I can lock it in to at least, I just want to lock it into column A. I don't really want to lock the row 3. So let's just hit F4, F4. Now the dollar sign's only on the A and not on the row, so that we can lock it into column A. Move this function around in a moment. So we're going to find the nth word. So that's the string I want, comma. And the other thing was, which word do I want? So if I'm wanting to get the first word, then what should I put here? That's right. I should put the number 1, right? The very first word, the first name. So if I hit enter, it finds the first word. Remember, find nth word will find the first word. Now, let me copy this over here by just dragging this formula. Now, it's going to copy the exact formula over pretty much because we locked it to column A with that $sign there. So it's not going to say, hey, what's B and then what's C? It's going to lock over here. Oh, but we do have to change the number. So this one, we need the last name. That's actually typically going to be 1, 2, 3 words in, right? So let's hit 3, Johnny test. And the middle initial is going to be, you guessed it, we need to put the number 2 here for the middle initial. That assumes that they have a middle initial. So what do we do if they don't have a middle initial? Oh my gosh. Then, you know, we could actually tweak this formula a little bit if we wanted. We could do something if we knew that we were dealing with names and, you know, if there was only 3, then we want to take this the second, or excuse me, if there was only 2 words in this array, then we would want to spit out the second result, the last name, if there was not a middle one. Well, you could do that here, or you could do that in the code as well. I don't think we'll get that deep in this particular lecture, but there's just so many parameters and there's so many different ways that you could automate this stuff, so that if you take this and copy your formulas down, it will save you a lot of steps instead of writing these big gigantic formulas that are just hard to read and whatever. And then, hey, if it slows down your workbook, do you know what you do? Here's what you do. Let me just copy these rows really quick. So we're going to copy and paste this row. So here's what you do if, you know, you copy, you know, 1,000 rows or whatever, and you don't want that to slow down your workbook. So here's what you do. You take all the information. Let's pretend all these rows have data in them, right? And you Control C to copy them. And then you right click and you paste values. That's going to copy over the absolute value of Johnny, the absolute value of test, and the absolute value of P, period. And what that does is that will tell your workbook it doesn't have to keep calculating these values every, you know, few seconds or whatever. So that's how to find the nth word, and that will be actually pretty useful to you who have to separate out and figure out a lot of things on your text. We'll see you in the next lecture.